what I would like you to do is to write in the chat. Have you done any writing this week? Like it could be morning pages, put it, if you're driving, don't worry about this part, but MP for morning pages, or if you actually wrote something for your memoir, good. Um, did you bring, is there anything you're afraid of right now happening? Did you want to drop and actually call me to drop? I'm laughing. Because this is when, and we know this from the Artist's Way, week 2, week 3, we've had the call to adventure. We're coming to this class, but we have a return sometimes. We don't want to do the class, or we come up with reasons why it doesn't work. And oh, good, Lisa's here. And so have you had any resistance? And obviously you're here. How did you get through that resistance? Have you done any writing? And if you could write that in the chat, I would really appreciate that. So the questions, I'll put them in here. Resistance. How did you get through it? And did you do any writing this week? And finally, if you have any questions, I may not be able to answer them now, but I'll have them so I can answer them later or personally. Okay. Yes. And of course, the assignment, just so you remember, was to bring book titles. If you didn't, you don't have to leave. We'll stay here. We'll come up with more. Okay. This is just part of the process. And as we're tiptoeing into it, I have found the biggest thing is making decisions, not just for me. I found it was for everyone, because it feels so final to make some decisions, and we all resist, and often in different ways. We're like magicians in a way. We find distractions, we distract the audience, we we can rationalize, we come up with excuses. This is normal to the creative process. And if you want to read more about that, and I can put this in the thing, is The War of Art, which is by Stephen Pressfield. And I think it's just great for this. I mean, the whole Artist's Way is getting through our blocks, and just looking at ourselves. And in a way, that's what this class is too. Because writing memoir is something that will absolutely, any kind of creative project, going to the gym, those all bring up resistance. So hi, Lisa, I'm glad you're here. Yes. And Alice is here. So just wanted to put that. I'm going to read some of the answers. I won't do your names, but if you just arrived, we're writing in the chat. Have you had any resistance to this process? Are you doing any writing? And if you have any questions. And I see I'm struggling with losing interest in my memoir. I want to finish it, but I don't want to do the hard work. Love that. Anyone else has experienced that? It can come up at different stages. And that's for those of you who've really been working on it. Yeah, it's so easy. Yes, I wrote this week FS, or at least edited old writings, along with same lines on my memo as on my memoir. Resistance. How did you get through it? Did you do any writing this week was the question. Reading second draft, some editing, and some reworking the outline. A lot of resistance. Every time you go into a new stage, a lot of resistance. I came up with a great title for my book and then realized it was the name of Demi Moore's memoir. Yikes. I like that one. I came up, assignment, got my resistance out of the way by scheduling a call with Kelly, ended up getting one-on-one coaching sessions because I am now on fire. Great. Yes, and all of you have some time with me as a part of this class. And either we spent it enrolling you and bringing you in, or whatever, but I'm either going to be reading some of the stuff you do, or you'll call and we'll talk. And if you are having resistance, and when we did it, the person I just read, I'll just say, Wanda, she was thinking wasn't in alignment anymore with what she was trying to do. But she soon saw that, oh yeah, not only is it in alignment, yeah, not only is it in alignment, but sometimes we say this in 12-step programs, our best thinking gets us where we've gone before. And so if you've ever tried to write a book or write memoir and you've gotten knocked out of it in some way, that's often resistance. And it's like weights in a sense. If you can get through it, if you can push on it, you'll actually strengthen your resolve. Now, someone like Miriam, I think you said Miriam's working on it a year. She's learning how to write. You're doing everything. And at some point, you're going to start losing interest in what you're doing because it's no longer fresh and young. And maybe that's why I didn't get married early.
Because of my writing?
Huh?
I said because of my writing?
No. Oh yeah, because you're right. No, because it's a long time to be with one person, and writing a memoir is a bit of a marriage. It's like going to a job. We have a lot of fun ideas about what it is to write or to be a painter, as Miriam is. So you've gotten through resistance before. It just starts coming up, and it's part of the process. Resistance is part of almost every day for me, Frank says. So yeah, I said I wasn't going to say names, but Frank, thank you for saying that, because you've been writing a long time too. You're a painter, you understand. Yeah, I wrote more on the days I talked to the colleague about memoir. I think it helps more to talk about it regularly with someone with whom you can bat ideas around. Not much resistance, but I'm experiencing the course in my consciousness. Love that. And that is ideally, and if you're not doing it yet, it's okay. As it is in our art, so it is in our life. And as it is in our life, so it is in our art. That's something you'll have to discover for yourself. You do it as you go, you start to learn. Christian New Age convert Jew was where you were going with that resistance. I'm not writing aimlessly or to the short term. I'm doing the homework from Blueprint for a memoir, and it's been great to sit in space. Love this and allow myself to think and let it evolve. It's newish for me because I'm good in the moment, off the cuff, write it like I say it. So I'm enjoying it a different way. I think that's a way that's really important for all of us to consider, which is because this is not school. Sometimes we can just relax and enjoy this process of doing this. And even the people who are in a second draft of memoir enjoy what you're discovering in this draft. It changes over time. Let's see, I've been writing, I guess, or writing every day at maximum or minimum of 30 minutes, morning pages, dreamland pages. It's just a matter of doing it, kind of like losing weight for me. I didn't start losing weight until I knew I was ready and really wanted to do it. And that's how I feel about writing these days. I'm at the very bottom when it comes to writing, and only one way to go, which is up. Yeah. Ooh, I like the name Dreamland Pages. I overcome it by plowing ahead with writing, but it wasn't easy. Okay, so I'm going to let the rest of those go. I think that represents what was in it. I thank you for putting that in there, because I think it's important when we're in a group that we understand not to fix anybody, but just to understand not everyone is in the same place as we are. Sometimes it's easy to start getting in a world where we think everyone's having the same experience as us. And it's knowing that we're all in different experiences. Like I'm just freezing every 5 minutes or 4 minutes. So, but others are not. So we live in different worlds. Okay, so let's talk about it today. We're going to go on with this process of creating our memoir. And part of this process, and I want to have as much about memoir as we can without making it seem overwhelming. I think just to go over, and I'm going to do a share. Does anyone have a question they need answered before we start? Okay. Remembering the hero's journey. If you weren't here last week, it has 12 stages. And remind me, I'll put it back. I can't do it right this second, but I will put it back in the chat. You should be getting emails. If you're not getting emails with this link of the notes, the link for that, as well as the video for each week, let me know. And also check your garbage, your junk mail. So there's 12 things. You're in your ordinary world, and then you get a thing for take a class to write memoir, and then refuse the call, and then you decide to come one day and it intrigues you. You cross the first threshold. You come across tests and enemies and allies, including resistance. This is where that fits. It can go and well, I'll talk about this in a minute, and so on. I don't want to go through the whole thing. You have it in yours, but the reason I wanted to go over the first few, this is all your handout. It has everything. It describes each stage. It takes the Wizard of Oz and it looks at, and I use that because it's not memoir, but it's about one person going through, actually several people, but it's about Dorothy going through this journey, and many of us have seen it, so it's a good movie to use. I have here another drawing of the hero's journey, because what we did last week is we worked on a timeline, and you can do these at any time. And I'm going to give you other tools for, let's say, Karen or Miriam are working on a chapter of their memoir and they are feeling resistance. Maybe we'll work with this week. We can do other tools like maps and things. I'll get to those later. Also, in your handout is things like what are some of the story arcs that we're looking at, quest or a transformation journey here, and some good examples in fiction, and then in memoir where there's some good examples of this happening. Then there are questions to answer, which you all answered in last week. And this was a big question, and it's an addendum to what we did last week. And that is the idea that although I'm trying to put this story arc into a nice circle for you all so we understand it, that is not how it necessarily happens in every book, and it's not necessarily how it happens in your life. So you can have 2 calls to adventure, 3, 4, 5 calls to adventure and not accept. But your memoir can include all kinds of calls to adventure. So, for example, and I've actually experienced this, maybe some of you have, I was in a relationship and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I don't know if this is right for me, this younger years. I want to speak up and say something. I try. He doesn't really take it the way I meant to. I recommit to the relationship, but I'm thinking about other things. And then, so like a breakup, it can take a long time. It can take years. Some people in marriages take 3, 4, 5, 10 years, 20 to break up, and they've wanted to break up all along. A diagnosis, there's stages that you go through. A job loss, you go through stages. We'll get into those later when we're writing. But please don't think that it's going to all happen just like it shows in there. The other thing, and this is new to this week, it will be in week 3 of your handout. Let's just look at, and you're going to write on the top of your page of what you're going to share with people, I want you to be able to figure out what kind of book you're writing. And if you're writing for others, which we talked about in the beginning, those are one set of books. And if you're writing for yourself or for people in your family, that's another kind of book. Now, if you're writing for others, it can be a narrative memoir, and that means includes literary memoirs. But that's a story. It's a true story. It has an arc, which is what we're going to cover today, a character arc. And it can be in different styles. I don't even want to get into genres in this class. It's a huge thing, but there's just so many places to send out your work. And we can talk about that another time. They give you examples of narrative memoirs. And a lot of us, and that's what I'm working on. And at the same time, it can also be a topical or thematic memoir, meaning you can be writing a story so that we can follow the story, but at the same time, it can be organized around a theme. And it's not necessarily linear theme. And When the Women Were Birds is an example of that. Now, if it's your first memoir and a first draft, I often say, let's just write it in order. Let's write it chronologically, because we can get into other kinds of other ways to organize your memoir. However, if it's going to be a topical or thematic memoir, sometimes you discover that as you start writing. If, for example, I'm writing about looking for a husband and getting married, that is a topical or a thematic memoir, but it's also going to be narrative, because I'm telling the story. The third kind of memoir you can write, and actually have a woman, I just got a memo from her today, and she is doing what you call prescriptive memoir. And a prescriptive memoir, she's a coach, and she wants to teach people how to be more prosperous. She has a story about that for her own. So it's her story of how she became more prosperous. And it also has lessons, kind of like this outline. In other words, I'm teaching something. And then if I put my story in here, and then I'm also giving you lessons or tools. The Artist's Way, to me, is like that. And they give other examples of that. Now, autofiction is a real fun thing. And I often suggest, if you're having trouble, especially in the beginning, writing about your own life, then just draw on your own life and fictionalize everything. That's a lot of what happened to me in the 50s and 60s when I was growing up, 70s, where, To Kill a Mockingbird was largely a lot of memoir in there, a lot of Peyton Place. They didn't want people to know that they were writing trash or that they had done trash. I mean, there was incest in Peyton Place. So they wanted to write that so that no one knew it happened to anyone that they actually knew. So there's a lot of books like that from the 50s and 60s. And it's totally great to do. And by the way, fiction, in terms of selling and you're writing for other people, is often a place where more books sell than in nonfiction. It's a hybrid. It can be all of the above. It can be braided. You can mix memoir with other genres. So you can have poetry, interviews, journalism, recipes, all of that. You can be teaching. You play with the structure there. And then a book of stories. This is also still for other people, but they give you examples of that. You don't have a narrative thread going through it. You don't have how you transformed as a result of going through this journey. And they give you examples. Me Talk Pretty one day. Sometimes I'm a big Sedaris fan because I like funny things. And a lot of times comedy, you can do that. You're telling slices of life that may not connect chronologically. And I would just say, if you want to write for others, I wouldn't just default to this because you don't know how to do this other. We're doing the other in here. And it can really, really work. And once you get into it, man, it's a lot easier. So then finally, this is memoir. You're not writing for as a professional necessarily. You're not writing it to send out for publishing. But you just want to write an autobiography or you want to write for yourself. And I want to include those. I think writing memoir is always writing for yourself. And it's another reason why we run into resistance because, I mean, the other day I was writing a piece about how I came to Los Angeles and I'm at the airport and I realized, this one piece of AA advice really relates to, I'm an AA at the time, relates to me, which is I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. I used to hear guys say that in the program and I'd be like, well, I'm actually in a situation and I'm realizing I'm not. I really am. I can act like that. I can be really have a sense of inferiority. And after teaching for almost 30 years, I know how much it means to people when they, not everybody and not necessarily anyone in here, but I know how much it means to people when I let them see my own fallibilities, failings. Because after all, a memoir, and we're going to get to this in a second, has to go around where you're one way. If we do narrative or any combination of anything with narrative in it, you're one way when you start, and this is at the start. And by the end of it, I am not going to be as insecure. I'm not going to stop myself for lack of confidence. So if you're not have any failings in the beginning, where are you going to go with that? And also writing and so why it works, it helps you handle. I don't want to go through all that. You can read this. I just remind me to put this in. Now, this is one of the big things that we're going to talk about today. And that is limited the character arc. Where did that go? I lost it. Okay. It'll be there by the time you read this. This is the character arc. And I searched everywhere so I could find one that went with the hero's journey. We'll look at it a different way at some point, but I wanted you to see how easy this is when you just look at the stages of the hero's journey. So let's look at the ordinary world. And I'm going to tell us again, I think I'll just use my own story so that I'm not embarrassing anyone else. But a limited awareness, let's talk about when I was drinking. I know a little bit about AA because my dad had been sober for 12 years. But as far as I was concerned, I was 30 years old. I was single. I just liked to drink. I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't really know in any way that I just like to have fun and drink. Drinking was a part of it. So I had a limited awareness about alcoholism. Now, the call to adventure, right, is when you get an increased awareness about it. Mm-hmm. And this is an example for me of a story in my life where it happened over a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And then one day I quit drinking. So on one hand, it seems like, oh, it happened overnight. But that's like saying most actors make it overnight. It was a lot of challenges and I kept running back to drinking. And then I was reluctant to change. And then one day I woke up in a certain place at a certain time. I called certain people and things started falling into place. And I ended up at a 12-step meeting and I realized, oh my God, I've admitted I can't leave now. And of course you can, but I didn't know that. So now I have a limited awareness of my new extraordinary world. Okay. So that's all that is. And then transforming, you go all the way, and we're not going to go through all of the stages right now, but we go all the way to mastery. Okay. So mastery meaning I know a lot about being sober now. And I know a lot of information. I have a lot of experience being sober, even when I didn't want to be. I know how to get through blocks. You know, that's mastery. You've gone on this journey and you're home, you're back home, where once again, that's why this is a circle. You have a limited awareness. There's more to learn. But you come home, and I used to hear people say, well, now that I have been to meetings where there's other sober people and I drank again, I can't forget everything I know. And that's the truth. You come home, and remember, in Dorothy, she's wearing the slippers underneath the blanket. She brings home a new ability to make decisions. Perhaps we don't know if she has those shoes on or not, but we do know people are treating her differently than if she wanted to, treating her differently than they did before she left. Before she left, no one was really paying attention to her. When she came back, everyone wanted to know what her experience had been. She had a credibility that she didn't have before. Okay. Any questions about that? So it's one thing to learn about it, and then applying it is really fun, because you get to see because it's the best way to learn about anything, and we can learn about it intellectually, but as we write, we have a different perspective on what it is to bring this about. Now, one of the things that we want to work out before you leave here, one of the reasons Miriam is back and which I love, because she's getting through resistance, because sometimes if we don't have as clear of a handle on our hero's journey, or if it's changed, like she's had a very creative process, then the hero's journey changes, and what you do and what you're writing about changes. Then sometimes you have to make a new list of things that would go along with that. By a yes or a no in the chat, how many of you brought 5 titles with you? Yeah, put a yes or no. Did anyone? I should ask. Raise your hand. How many of you didn't bring any? I don't know a possible topic. Maggie. Okay. Cool. Okay. If you're one of the ones that raised your hand, and I know Maggie for sure, we talked about a possibility last week. You don't know, no. So you have a possibility of a story from your life. The no's. Okay, so the no's, would you put in there in the chat if you were able to come up with 5 titles?
No.
Well,
What
I
if we
thought,
came
I
up
thought,
with
I thought
one?
no
You don't
was,
have to put them in there. Like Frank, you said you don't know which one you want to write. Did you come up with 5? Or did I ask the same question twice?
yeah, like when we were answering no, we were saying no, we didn't come up with 5 titles. I
Oh,
can do that now in
no,
30
but that was a brain blip.
seconds.
Thanks for catching me.
It won't be great, but I could do it.
I'm quitting sugar today, so I have an excuse. My brain is cloudy. Okay, so I asked that question. No, I don't have 5 titles. So there are a few of you that don't. Okay, the next question in there is just let me know if you have an idea for your book. You have an idea, a story from your life, yes or no. Or if you can have 2 or 3. And if you have 2 or 3, you can put that down. But I hope you all have some, yes. Okay, some idea, possibilities at least. Good. Okay, good. A gazillion. That is the biggest problem other than not having any. It's either we have a gazillion or we don't have any. Those are two huge problems. Okay. Yes, and I have one title. Okay. What I want to do today is I want to, if you would write on the piece of paper first, number one, what kind of book are you writing? So in other words, I gave you a list of books. I can put it back up, but if you wrote down, hopefully, what kind of book are you writing? Is it a narrative memoir? Is it a prescriptive one where you're teaching something at the same time? So I'll put this question in the chat. See if it goes through. Okay. Does anyone need to see that list again real quick? Yeah. Okay.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, to share that list again very quickly. It's one, narrative memoir or literary memoir. Remember that just a story from some point in your life. Topical or thematic memoir, meaning, you know, you're going to write about Route 66 and what it was to you in your life or something, or you're going to write about your marriage. So you have it is both, it might be topical or thematic. You have a theme and it's going to be your story. And you don't have to be that specific with it at this point, but if you know, why not put it down? Could be prescriptive memoir. That means you're teaching something with your story. Autofiction means you're taking your life and you can fictionalize it. You know, they say write what you know. So if you want to write that kind of memoir in here. Hybrid is you are doing all of the above or one or two of the above and combining them. And they call it a braided memoir because you're doing a couple different things. 6 is a book of stories. You're just going to write some short stories and put them together in a memoir or publish them on Substack. And then 7, you're just at this point, you want to do an autobiography, which is a memoir for yourself or your family. For therapy, legacy is the autobiography. I'll write that in here. Autobiography. Autobiography is different than memoir. It's your whole life. Or it's not your thoughts or opinions on it. It's not necessarily a story. It could be a bunch of stories starting when you're born. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. So first question is, would you please write what kind of thing? Then any titles that you are. So then tell me what is your first choice for a book for writing? Second choice, and some of you may only have one choice. I think a lot of you do. And third choice. Now, for someone who has a gazillion ideas, that's still hard. But put them down. Put down your different choices because we're in a process of elimination and building both at the same time. Remember, we're in the ordinary world. And we have to lose something as we go along into accepting the call. Accepting the call means we're going to have to let go of some things. You might have to let go of a couple stories, or you might put them in with another story, or your idea might change. It's all part of the creative process. Okay, so your first choice, your second choice, third choice. Excuse me, if you're putting that, Rusty, thank you. That, and Rusty in the chat put in a thing. I'm saying write it down on your paper. And is that clear, or does it sound like I was asking you all put it in the chat?
Oh, are we writing it on paper?
Yeah, I want you to write on paper what kind of memoir you're writing. And what was my first question? Your first title.
What kind of memoir
book
we're writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, and if you look for Rusty, she's got it down there. Let's see, now I've lost it. So.
I took it out.
Yeah, it's one new. It's at the very end. Hers to the sons of angry mothers, my mistakes with men. And she's got 3-4 points underneath it. That might be, we don't know. And it's not for us right now to care. I mean, it just could be four things within that book, or it could be for yours, 4 different books you might read. Your first choice, your second choice, third, fourth. And you can write them down and put those numbers by them first. Now, if you're someone who has written a first draft of a memoir before, it's still fun to play with different subtitles. You know, how I went from being a big corporate executive to someone who picked up poop, and why it made my life amazing. You know, could be an example of a Miriam's subtitle. I just made that up, but a subtitle can explain things. Yeah.
Miriam, it could be from a shitty life to a shitty life, but it's one thing. I just gotta tell you, I just gotta talk. You're so much fun. I just gotta talk to you. We gotta talk to each other one day, because I want to play with you on these words, because it's just so fun. Anyhow, I can't wait to read the book.
It could be I miss poop and I know my shit was my biggest tagline.
Yeah.
I know my shit finally.
Yeah.
Finally.
Okay, and let me just look to see if I have 2 more questions. Okay. At the beginning of the book, let's just pick your number 1 book, your number 1 idea. If you have 3 ideas, just pick one of those 3 ideas that you're just going to work on in here. Sometimes I've had so many ideas. I'm a lot like Frank, and I've had to go through and do some of these things on them to see if I really had enough there that I wanted to keep working on. So what I want you to talk about is, in these next 2 questions, and let me put them in the chat. The first one is, of course, the main character, unless you're writing autofiction and then you've renamed your main character into whatever name, but it's still, we're working on chronological memoirs for this first draft. What is the name of the character and what's their biggest goal? What is your goal, your biggest goal at the beginning of the book?
Character or as the writer?
Well, you're writing memoir, so you should be the hero. So let's say the heroes. Unless you're writing fiction, but then it's just your hero and maybe not, you're the same. What's the biggest goal at the beginning of your book? And second, does your main character, you, the hero or anti-hero, we'll talk about that later, make that goal or wish or hope come true? It's a little bit constrictive to just write goal, but we're going to use goal to mean a hope or a wish. Does it come true by the end of the book? Can I use yours again, Miriam?
Sure.
So Miriam is writing about getting let go of a big corporate job and then deciding to start a company, and she becomes a number 1 company like this in her part of the country, where they have people to pick up the poop of dogs. It's pretty wealthy people. And
no, it's other people too. Everybody.
Everybody. Okay, I guess her prices were good, but she lives near a lot of wealthy, right? Or it doesn't matter to the thing.
No, I live in a very wealthy area, but all kinds of people, all levels need the service, much
Gotcha.
to my surprise.
Much to her surprise. See, already she's surprised by her own development of this. So her goal, what was your goal at the beginning of the book, Miriam?
Let's pay the mortgage.
Yeah. No, to pay the mortgage, but in actually starting this business, what is the goal to make with this business?
Well, starting this business was I was broke. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I had another previous business from a partner embezzled everything, and I was broke and depressed and pretty much wanted to give up and didn't know what to do next. And I needed to make money kind of quickly.
So she has two goals at the beginning. She has a problem. Let me put this. So this is one way to get to it. What's the problem? What's the goal? And then does the person make that goal? Now, I'm going to just do this for time purposes, Miriam, and just to give you some ideas.
Okay.
But by the end of the book, her main character can actually find out so many things. She can find out how great it is to have free time anytime she wants it, how great it is not to work with a partner and to be in charge of all the decisions herself. She can find out that she has a lot of power and she can start a business anytime she wants. I'm not going to tell her. She may find out that that business was going in a good direction, but it's not the business she wants to do. It's not the only way to make money. And she may go off in another direction because that's how life is, right? The goal is not to necessarily just, or the end of the book is not just necessarily making that one goal come true. It's what's next? Where does it take you? Yes.
So the goal was not just becoming Miss Poop, which is kind of a very embarrassing, humbling job. And when I was starting that business, I also was cleaning a cell phone store. So I went from being, a corporate executive, blah, 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 to a pretty humbling job. But I felt so shitty about myself anyway, I might as well do that. And during that 10-year period of becoming Miss Poop, I finally became myself. And I became a person I always felt I should have been. And I became happier, more self-assured. My humor returned. And I wasn't sarcastic anymore. My humor wasn't hurtful towards myself. So it was a real personal transformation. And then I became an artist.
This is such a good example of, you can tell Miriam's been working on this memoir. She didn't say this when she just opened it up. This has come after time to make a decision, of writing. That has to be in the recording. I hope you bring your own recording. It's just an excellent place to go with the book. You can tell this person is writing a book that is worth reading.
And one other little thing is that my book started out growing up in a dysfunctional family in Chicago, and I wasn't going to write about Miss Poop's story at all, but all that dysfunction from my background, which makes for good stories, really made for good. They were like lessons, and that's what I'm struggling with right now. How do I take those stories into lessons learned by being Miss Poop, and that transition and the value of what I learned growing up in kind of a crazy atmosphere to create a life that I really like living now.
Yeah. So we're working with flashbacks and other things because Miriam has made decisions as she's gone along, like the decision to put this one story out of her life. And during this time, she's working on feeling good about herself. And so this is a time when she can work with some of those stories about her upbringing, because there's nothing like that to make, if we work with the traumas, you'll decide what it is, Miriam. I don't want to say, but she can come up with that ending that she just talked about.
Yeah. I mean, and the trauma basically is like, it's sort of black humor. That's just how I am. But so it adds excitement and it adds interest to the story. It's not just how I became a poop scooper and ended up making almost $200,000 a year at $15 a yard.
Yeah.
It's not a how-to book. It's really about how I grew out of the person I thought I was into the person I should have always been. Not
Right.
should have, wanted to be.
Yeah.
It
So
was so
she
easy
had,
when I tell you. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble writing them.
well, because it's just part of the creative process, it's so yes. And I wanted to show you someone who's been working on a while. You'll know more about what you're working on as you work through it. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do right now, and we've probably lost it in the thing, is and I should have probably written it on our share, but I want you to put down the first one or use one as an example that you want to work on. If you have all 5 titles or just one title, put that down. Put down what goal does the character have at the beginning, and does the character ever make the goal? Does the goal change? And what story in your life is this depending on? And by the way, and you can do this, biography, and we just learned this. I had a lesson in this myself. I did not know this. Karen was writing about her son, and we learned that that's not considered memoir. She has to write about herself, and her son can be a character in it. A memoir is always the person who's writing it, their thoughts, their inner thinking, their outer thinking. Okay, write that all down. If you're done with that, look up, because I want to put you in groups where you can share what you're
Can you
working
just
on.
repeat? Can you please repeat? There was list our title, whatever it is.
Yeah,
What
you're
was the
taking
next
one off
thing?
your list of a gazillion. You're listing 1 or
The
5
next thing
titles for it.
was,
Mhm.
the next thing was,
The next thing was, was there one in between there? What's your character's main goal?
and then the final one.
Yeah, did they realize that goal by the end of your story?
All right.
And then just a couple lines about what your story's about somewhere in there. What are you learning from working on this process? Is there, I mean, I don't want long stories about it, but something you're learning either from hearing other people talk about theirs or you talking about yours. What are you discovering? Let's just take a minute, and are there any questions?
Do you want us to speak if we
Yeah.
feel like speaking?
Yeah, you can speak
Okay.
and
So it's like
raise your hand.
everybody has a fascinating story. This is, and not just one story, but and we're just talking about our real lives here, I just find it fascinating. And I do like the small groups because we're able to like connect in a way that we're not in a classroom and sitting in the classroom mostly listening to the teacher who I love. But so I love that all these I love that we all have our fascinating stories. I just think it's great. So that's my 2 cents.
Mandy.
Yeah, thanks. I'll share as a person who has like sort of a hard time making decisions and too many ideas, um, and confusion around that. Something I discovered this week is, first of all, I just did I did 3 ideas, the 3 ideas that seem to be in like that stick and grab my attention. And I've decided that I'm just going to keep working on all of them in terms of this, like the structure. And so for me, that takes a lot of the pressure off of deciding. And the worst that's going to happen is at the end, I'll hit like a point at which I don't want to go any further with one or some of them. And then if I have 3, then all I have to do in the end is decide which one of these do I want to flesh out right now. And then I will have 2 other ones on the back burner. So it's like I just like sort of realized this from doing the exercises, and just following along and then saying it out loud in the little group just then. I was just like, oh, that's helping me. I just am not choosing and I'm just working on it now.
Love
So,
that.
yeah, thank
Love
you.
that. And I have found, as someone who has a lot of ideas, that sometimes they start to braid together.
Well, that's been my problem. So
No,
trying
but I
to
mean
separate them out.
into one braid.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but or they may not. You may have to choose someday, but you don't not choosing. And 3 is not too many. 3 is a really easy number to do these exercises on, and then let's see if one intuitively becomes more interesting, or that's what I hear you saying, or you know.
Yeah. It's helping me to leave it open, but it's also helping to sort of drill down on each one.
Writing is a series of decisions, and although I can make some decisions very easily, I have the same challenge, and I have had. Although I did finally decide on one, so I really appreciate you bringing it up for others. Yes, Johnny.
What I've discovered, or what I'm discovering, is to trust myself. That intuitively I know the stories I want to tell because they've been in me for a long time, and I've been lucky to find all that writing that I had done back in 2013, and the ideas haven't changed. The ideas have only matured with my age because I don't see the world the same way as I did 10 years ago. But
Cool.
the dreams and the ideas are still the same, and getting in class like this is motivating because everybody has such a unique story that it gives me confidence that my story is just as impactful as any of the other stories I hear in class.
Awesome.
There is no wrong answer.
The thing about ideas is it's wonderful if you can go back and read your ideas. And I think you know this now, they are not the same as a story. And we're going to get into this toward the end of the quarter, but most memoir writers write about their story. They don't write their story directly. And it's the number one challenge. So, and that is myself, everyone I've worked with, very good writers. It's the narrative. If you're writing a narrative, it has to have a lot of things in it. And one of the big things that people are, and you may learn, is it's going to be about slowing down. Unless you're telling a bunch of short stories. It's slowing everything down instead of just talking about the story. So yeah. Anyone else?
Also, the amalgamation of stories, like getting having a bunch of ideas and really realizing they're all part of my life, so they have to intertwine somehow. So
yes.
Finding a way to weave the stories together so it's not too much but still makes sense. Each story still makes sense within the other.
Yes, and probably why we are all going to need an editor at the end of this process. Because we think that this has to go in there and this has to go in there because we lived it. And we think when we write about something too, that instead of writing the story itself, that people will be interested in it. So these are all things we're going to learn new techniques, as Johnny's already learning them. He's been able to really try some new things with his writing that have worked very, very well. Okay. Anyone else? Another voice in the room? Rusty, or anyone else have anything to add?
Sure, I'll say some things quickly. I been toying around with a lot of ideas, but the cool thing is they're all thematically linked. So a lot of the writing that I've already done and that I've been doing over the past couple of years are all centered around partly the theme of Route 66, as we've discussed. I've driven 3 times from one end of the country to the next in the last 10 years with a dog both times. And I moved from Los Angeles to the East Coast to a very
Something happened.
Did you freeze, Frank? He can't. And then I froze, but I can still talk. Can you guys hear me, though I was frozen?
Yeah.
Alice and I are patiently waiting.
case thinking, what am I doing? I left my sponsor, my AA sponsor. I left all my friends where I'm somewhat of an established artist and musician. And I went someplace where I know one woman and one dog, and the only time I was ever there, there was a hurricane. So it was kind of weird. And an Uber driver picked me up who happened to have 30 years sobriety, who happened to work for a tour company and essentially offered me a job as a tour guide. And I went on to win Rookie of the Year, going to a place knowing absolutely nothing. And that's kind of a trip. But still, there were problems, frustrations, struggles, enemies, allies. And I ended up coming back to LA after 4 years and essentially ending up in the same boat I was in when I left.
Yeah,
So,
instead of telling the story, Frank, what did you learn from that?
oh, um, well, that no matter where you go, there you are. I mean, it's like
Ah,
you can't whip a geographic out and go, wow, I'm a whole new dude. Like I went to Tennessee and looky here. I didn't get a gold Cadillac. I
awesome. Write that down because, sometimes we think that this happened and that happened is the story. Well, it might be like the spine of a tiger, but it's not the story. The spine of the tiger is holding muscles. And when you start talking about what it's about, that is why people read memoir. We want to learn from Frank, who is gone. I mean, that is one of your great stories. And we want to learn what you thought as you went about this. We want to learn what you experienced at the end of this. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course, you're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah. Rusty, did you have something to add? Because I do want to do one more thing before we leave. Oh, you're good? Okay. Let me do another share. So we covered at the beginning. Okay. So maybe we can use Frank's story. Frank, you still there?
I am here.
When you left for
Savannah.
Savannah, I knew it was S. What didn't you know?
Anything about what it was like to live in another town other than Los Angeles for any extended period of time,
Great.
whether I'd be able to survive or find a job, and how I would fit in, essentially. Like,
That's your everyday world. You're going back up to there. That's the everyday world. And then you get an increased awareness. What was the call? Can you name one thing that was the call? Just as an example, you might have had 2 or 3 calls.
the minute an Uber driver shows up and basically in the course of 5 minutes of conversation, he has 30 years sober and he works for a tour guide company and is offering me a job.
Okay.
Like, it
Stop
was
just one
like,
second because I'm just using you as an
maybe I can
example.
fit in here and make a go of it.
Yeah. What did you think inside when he said that?
I was looking for him to float down out of the sky in a crystal bubble and ask me about the ruby slippers I was wearing and, that kind of, it was like, what the F? This is like, did I just meet like my maker or what the hell? Who's this dude? Colonel Sanders. It was bizarre.
Okay.
So
So I want to make a point with this. Do you hear Frank? Could anyone else have said what he was thinking about what the guy did except for Frank? It is your inner thinking was somewhat your reactions and how do you take the job, do you not take that? But far more interesting is him saying, what did this falling out of the sky? Whatever Frank just said, in the words that Frank said them in, that is what this inner, we call it subjective writing about what happened. That is what makes memoir. That is what is going to construct your plot. And no one could have done it better than you, just being yourself, just right now. And I want to go so you have an increased awareness. I'm going to let this example go for a second, Frank. You have to overcome all your reluctance. You get on the road, and that is a commitment. Everything is commitment. And then you don't want, and like Miriam today, now she has to recommit because we get tired. We don't want to write this anymore. We don't want to stay on Route 66. We don't know if we want to go there or somewhere else. And then we experiment. We prepare. The I in the story does all of this work. And then the character starts to change. He gets the job. He's living somewhere he's never lived before. He starts to change, and there are consequences for that change. And then he has to decide, do I want to rededicate myself to what I'm learning, or do I want to do something else? And you go through some final attempts, mastery. I'm just going to say this, it's probably not true for Frank, but just for lack of time. He has a mastery now on how to go live in another city, even though he had never done it before. He can tell you probably what you do, how you give it up to God, how you, whatever his thoughts are. That's what makes the memoir, if that makes sense. It's not that Frank went to Savannah. It's not that, maybe if he was Tupac Shakur, I'm so out of it. It was some big singer that's popular today. He got killed, didn't he? No, so not that singer, but just let's say it was a celebrity biography. He doesn't have to worry about all this because people will read what this happened and that happened. But when it's Frank or you or me, we need to get our thoughts as these things happen on the page. It's called subjective writing, and that's what does it. Like, for example, I have limited awareness of AA. My dad gets sober, that increases it. I'm reluctant to change, but maybe I'm drinking too much. Finally, one day I wake up, I go to my first AA meeting, and I think that, oh my God, this means now that I can never drink again, because the minute you go to an AA meeting, this is my mind thinking, that means it's all over. You just have to stay there. and whatever I was thinking, that makes me my personality. So any questions about this?
No, I don't really have any. I don't have any questions. I had a thought about it, but
well, you can say the thought.
Well, with Frank, what I want to say in terms of the hero's journey, you met a little guide. The paradox, or whatever the irony is, you became a guide, but your first meeting in 30 minutes was with, like, when we go on a hero's journey, we get allies along the way that help us. Well, you met your first ally, and what I want to say is, what you were talking about is like, was this an angel from the sky, whatever? It's like you had a psychic change, like something became possible that wasn't possible 35 minutes before. Do you see? That's what I got from what you said.
And like, what's going to be important about it, Maggie, that I was just talking about? What's the subjective writing? And how will that make
his perspective of the circumstance is poetic and interesting.
Yes.
It's your perspective of it. I have a little interpretation of it, but your perspective of it is something shifted in your psyche and you went to the next step. That's what I heard when you said, was it an angel, somebody from the sky, or was it Santa Claus? I didn't remember the things you said, but it was cool.
Yeah. So that's the whole point. We are individual now, unless you're writing stories about something else or someone else. You, Wanda, Dawn, Mandy, Maggie, Jim, Alice, Kay, Victoria, me, Johnny, we are characters in our own life. We are the main hero. And it is the way that we think about things that drives people insane, that makes people love us. And they don't love us because we're perfect. They love us because, did I say Jim too? I can't forget Jim. Because it's the way I get sober. It's not that I got sober. It's the way I got sober, what I thought about getting sober, how I thought, then how am I going to get married if I can't drink? I mean, this is my mind. It's how you think and what you'll do just by writing about what happens and what you think about it is you are going to create the plot. I'm just giving you these things so you have some kind of guideline as you go along. Whatever idea that you're settling into, it's going to be you. And if someone doesn't buy your memoir, it can be for a million reasons. They're not looking for memoir at that time. Memoirs on quitting drinking aren't the thing they're selling right now. I mean, there's all that thing when you go into the market, but I guarantee you this, if you get creative and you tell about your own process of going through it, you will have a unique story that is really fun to read for others. Oh, I never thought of that. Oh, I didn't have that experience when I got sober. God, what is she? Like, that's a really dumb thing to think. You know, all the things we think when we're reading a book. And that's why it's a little vulnerable to write a memoir because, you know, our ego's gone, don't let people know that you were this person who was very superficial, who didn't like going up to my knees in the ocean. I only put my toe in. I mean, I'm speaking metaphorically. You know, your ego wants you to appear a certain way. So this is an exciting process because you're going to get to find out what you really thought at the time. Or think now, and you're going to put it in terms of that. So that's the last lesson that I want to leave you with. Any other question about that? We're almost, let's see if we have a minute here.
I just like to say, being in the group, I was with Alice and I can't remember, but each of my partners, they were so interesting. Like I would never have imagined they were so interesting. And it was like I was left wanting to find out more about who are they? Like that's really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Who was with Jim? Alice and who else?
Rusty.
Yeah, Rusty.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's a veteran. You've written it too, Jim. You've written it. So these are veterans. And but I really think that writing is a job that is not a lone job. That's how we lone wolf job, because we all need people to go, wait a minute. You know, I'm reading this and it's not, what do you mean to be saying? How are you trying to make it come off? And then is it really coming off that way? Is this missing or is that missing from a scene? It's not a matter of being a good or bad writer. It's just a matter of putting it into, you know, the right cake container, book container. Okay. So, and I can answer more questions, but the assignment is to read pages 43 through 72 in our book. This kind of gives you some things we're not doing in class that are interesting and worth reading. If you get overwhelmed, just do one thing. We're just going at whatever pace you can go through. Now, to talk about if you have a Kindle, what are those pages? It's where will your book sit on the shelf, which is at the end of what you read last week, to the thing that says design a structure, which we're already doing based on hero's journey arc, character arc, and how do you show that through subjective writing. So that's what we did today. The action, you know, it's kind of fun if you take the time to look on Amazon and see what some people get discouraged, and if you're one of them, don't do it. But if you don't get discouraged, what's really exciting is when there's a lot, contrary to what I thought, when there's books like yours out there, it means there's a market for that book. I used to think, oh, someone already wrote a book on that, I can't write a book on it. Au contraire, that's exactly the reason why you should write it. And even, I think, Jim, you were saying that people were saying, oh, you know, we don't want to do that book right now because blah, blah, there's too many out there. But that's just one place or 10 places that can change in a week. It can change in months. But if you go out there and see there's a lot of books, and then see the 2 or 3 that you like the best, and bring in some of those ideas next week with you, because there are people who've gone before us that maybe have written the same exact idea into a book, and you can get some good ideas from them, but you can also then use your creative process to take it more. Let's listen to Rusty. Rusty knows a lot about this.
I just I have a Kurt Vonnegut link that I can put in the chat where he's talking about how everyone can write a story. Boy meets girl, the girl's at the lowest of the lowest. Not only, has she, has her father died, but her, she's left with a mean stepmother and two horrible stepsisters. Oh, you've heard it, Cinderella. After I watched that, I got hooked on watching Cinderella stories and just a whole bunch of them. And all of them I would watch, and they're different by the dialogue, by how the nasty tricks the stepsisters play, by how hard it is that she has to work to be able to get to the ball. It's like we all have original stories because, like Kelly said, we have our own unique experiences with them. And one of the writers I know, she was writing about starvation and lack of stability in her childhood. And when she went to go with the assignment this week that Kelly's talking about to the bookshelves to find other books where her book would sit, she found another book that was also about starvation and a whole bunch of turmoil in childhood. And they both were using Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara, in as a metaphor and as kind of a backdrop for their own story. But she wasn't discouraged because she realized that she was also writing a letter to Scarlett at the beginning of each chapter and mirroring a lot of that. And like Kelly said, it proves there's an audience because there's a big blackball society. There's a Gone with the Wind Facebook groups of aficionados. You have an audience. And if there's a book out there on a shelf and it's doing well, it's similar to yours, you have an audience. I call it a twin author. And it's really fun to watch the 4-minute video by Kurt Vonnegut. I'll put it in the chat if people
Would
want to
you do
go
that?
see
I
it.
love that idea. And
Yeah,
also,
it's
you bring up fairy tale, which so many fairy tales are archetypal stories. My fairy tale is the Ugly Duckling. If I think about my life and how I see life, that's my fairy tale. If you have a fairy tale that you really like, or a fantasy story that you really love, or a movie that you love, sometimes that can be a great clue to know more about what kind of book you might want to write. So,
Yeah.
okay, do you have it in the, yes,
Yeah,
there it
it's there in the
is.
chat.
So I'm gonna take that.
It's only 4 minutes and it's fabulous to watch. He'll make you laugh.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So
That's
my
it.
Only pants you'll
my
want to wear this summer.
hesitancy
Oh.
is I
Within
got a
your
little
50s.
ditty. Can I give a little ditty about
Yeah.
this? Come up with
That's
my-
a great way to end class, on a ditty. I
I'm
love
gonna
that.
because I got this one. I feel hesitant because it's me. I feel like okay, but anyhow, it's about when one thing is one thing and then suddenly it's not anymore. Okay, it's when your perspective changes. It's a song. I'm just gonna give you the chorus. I don't know how it happens. In a heartbeat, we change. Everything that was so certain is somehow rearranged. Every answer I have no longer applies as I see the world through very different eyes.
Mm.